So guys, this next news story is coming from London ways, and a crazy gang stripped a man naked, tied him to a chair, stabbed him, and set him alight with an aerosol can flamethrower. The victim was knifed multiple times in the throat, cheek and face as the gang threatened to pop his eye out. He'd been lured to the property in Gravesend after warning his friend about a local drug dealer known as CJ who had been cuckooing his friend's home. Now 4 men have received sentences totaling more than 50 years after the man had boiling water poured over him, a dog set on him, and was jumped on repeatedly until he passed out. Charlie Saunter is 23, William O'Brien is 20, Kai Haruna is 20, and Sam Secord is 30, all appeared at Maidstone Crown Court. They admitted a variety of charges including causing GBH with intent, burglary, robbery, false imprisonment and drug dealing. The prosecutor Tanya Robinson told the court how the Gravesend victim was cut all over with a knife after the weapon was repeatedly run down his face like it was being sharpened. She added the complainant then described how O'Brien told him to strip and used a deodorant can like a flamethrower on the complainant's groin and genitals after being set alight. The complainant later described how he had to hit his genitals to put out the fire. On July 7, 2020, police went to the victim's address and found him injured and needing medical treatment before taking him to an hospital in Gillingham. The prosecutor explained whilst that was being undertaken, police attended an address associated with Saunter in Gravesend where they found the attackers. When the police went in, Saunter placed his hands in the air. However, a second or two later, he reached down beside the sofa and pulled out a Rambo knife in a sheath. The cop shouted for him to drop the weapon while red dotting him, which means aiming the taser at him. It was at this stage a bull mastiff dog in the address attacked the cop by biting him on the right knee. The owner of this animal was Mr. O'Brien, who then controlled the dog and removed it from the room. After his arrest, O'Brien told a police officer, "I was there but I didn't do anything. They were going to throw him out of the window but I said no, don't. I'm not like that. I just needed somewhere to stay with my dog. My life is fucked." During the police raid, Saunter asked officers, "Have you got my bag with all my clothes and stuff in it?" They opened the holdall and they discovered heroin inside there, £1,000 in cash, and a notebook with drug information written on it. The victim later told police how he was forced to stand in the shower while he had buckets of boiling salted water poured over his head and thrown at him. The prosecutor described how the victim was assaulted so many times he struggled to remember what's happened and who had done what. She added what he could remember was how Haruna repeatedly jumped on his chest until he passed out. When he woke up, the defendants told him they had been cutting his ears. He then noticed a piercing type hole to his ear that wasn't there before he passed out and cuts to both ears. The prosecutor told the court how Haruna told the victim he wanted to kill him and that it was only the other 2 people who had saved him. The victim was asked if he wanted to ring his mum or kids before O'Brien brought out his dog on a chain, setting him on the victim. He was left with a facial fracture, burns to his abdomen and thighs, and burns to his groin and foot. The prosecutor said when the police looked at the defendant's mobile phones, they discovered footage of another attack on another vulnerable man a week earlier where the 3 of the men forced their way into the victim's home and robbed him of cash before losing a tooth after being hit with weapons. So Saunter of East Sussex received an extended prison sentence of 17.5 years, while O'Brien was given an extended sentence of 15 years. Haruna received a sentence of 12 years and 3 months, while Secord was jailed for 5 years and 3 months. The judge, Charles MacDonald, ruled Saunter, O'Brien and Haruna posed a danger to the public and their sentences including a 4-year term which will be served once they were released from completing 2/3 of their initial sentences. The judge also issued an order against O'Brien so he was unable to keep his dog. The lawyers for the 4 defendants said the incidents happened more than 2 years ago when Haruna and O'Brien were teenagers and accepted their behaviour had been horrible. O'Brien actually wrote to the judge and says, "I can't ever and won't ever excuse my terrible actions. Words cannot describe how sorry I am for the victims. Coming to prison has made me realise that this is not the career path that I want. If I could go back and change what happened, I definitely would. I am not a horrible person. I was just a very, very stupid kid." So guys, here's a new story coming out of London ways, and it's your boy GT. Keep it locked, keep it real.